Exposed. Terrifying summer camping stories that reveal haunted secrets and unexplained mysteries. Emily felt a vertigo of excitement as they pulled into Camp Pinewood's gravel lot. Excitement mingling with her long-time anxiety, like lightning cracking across an evening sky. Her kids, Jake and Lily, erupted from the car, their laughter echoing against the towering trees. The camp was supposed to be a sanctuary, a soothing escape from their frenetic Chicago life. Yet she couldn't shake the weight in her chest as they unloaded the trunk. It was too quiet, too still. The laughter of other children drifted from the playground, but something was off. As twilight deepened, the campfire crackled and the first ghost story wafted through the air. Campers gathered, hushed and expectant, as tales of the forest watcher echoed against the encroaching night. Each story unfolded with vivid horror, the screams of campers lost to the woods, unseen eyes that tracked movements, and shadows that danced just beyond sight. Emily's heart raced with each chilling word, fear gnawing at her as she glanced back at her children, their innocent faces glowing in the firelight, consumed by the wild imaginations sparked by this folklore. It felt wrong to brush aside her dread, especially when Jake insisted he heard noises late into the night. The following morning brought a gnawing panic. Mark, a seasoned outdoorsman, left early for a fishing trip, promising to catch dinner. Hours passed, stretching on with a twisted sense of foreboding. Emily busied herself with Jake and Lily, but her mind drifted back to the camp director's easy dismissal of her worries. "He's just enjoying nature," the man had said with an unnerving calm before urging her to keep an eye on the children. But something tightened in Emily's gut, a whisper that something awful lay beneath the camp's charming veneer. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Night fell again, thick with shadows that crawled and danced. Jake and Lily begged to stay up late, and in a lapse of judgment Emily agreed. Their laughter, once sweet, curdled in the chill as the woods crackled with noise. Then silence. The wind dropped, swallowed whole by something dark. Suddenly, a low, guttural growl slithered from the darkness beyond their cabin, raising the hairs on her arms. She ushered the kids inside, locking the door, but the feeling of being watched crept back like creeping fog. Then the lights flickered and darkness fell. Shadows lurked just outside the window. Her breath quickened as the rustle of leaves turned into something more: footsteps. She strained, listening, her heart pounding against her ribs like a drum, eyes locked on the blackness beyond. What was out there? The camp director's reassuring words slipped away, replaced by a haunting truth. They may just become the next tale told around the campfire. Panic surged through her as she realized her family was trapped, caught in a sinister game that no one would believe, riddled with secrets deeper than the woods themselves. As she clutched her kids tightly, the night stretched on, and the question loomed. Where was Mark, and more importantly, would he return before it was too late? The silence outside morphed into an unsettling blanket, tightening around Emily as she squinted into the abyss, searching for anything amidst the night. Each crack of a branch felt like a warning. Her breath came in hitches as she pulled Jake and Lily closer, whispering to them that everything would be okay. But the tremor in her voice belied her bravado. "Mom, what's out there?" Jake's eyes were wide, the innocence of childhood glaring against the encroaching dread. Lily clutched her brother's arm, her little body trembling. "I don't know, honey. Just stay close," Emily replied, her heart racing as dread pooled in the pit of her stomach. Minutes turned into hours, each one dragging like lead. The oppressive silence wrapped tighter around them, pressing against their ears like a whisper. Then a sudden flash illuminated the room, and a shriek of pain echoed from deep within the woods, a raw, piercing wail that told of horror. Emily's heart stopped. It wasn't part of a game. It was a cry of someone in real distress. The flickering lights leapt back to life, casting a dim glow around the cabin. Emily glanced out the window again. The woods were blacker than before, like a yawning chasm waiting to swallow them whole. She caught a glimpse of movement, a shadow flitting between the trees. Her breath hitched in her throat as another growl rumbled through the air. Deeper, closer. "Stay here," she commanded, but terror tightened her grip on the doorknob. The instinct to flee struggled against the need to protect. What if Mark was out there? What if he needed help? Leached by fear, she turned away from the door, seeking comfort in her children's eyes. Moments passed, but they felt endless. Emily's mind raced. Mark had always been the strong one, unflappable. What if he hadn't returned because something terrible had happened? The memory of his voice, calm yet reassuring, brought a painful twinge of guilt. Had she underestimated the camp's dark lore? The forest watcher was no mere myth. She felt herself drifting, trapped in the cycle of fear and uncertainty. Then, an unexpected knocking resounded at the door. It was rhythmic, intentional. Emily froze. "Mom, what's that?" Jake asked, his voice trembling. "Maybe it's Dad." Another knock, louder this time, and something whispered her name, soft, sinister, slithering through the beams of the cabin. Emily, her breath caught. It wasn't he, just the woods. "Stay back," she warned, moving toward the door, heart pounding in her ears. "Mom," Lily echoed, pleading. Was it Mark? Should she open it? Every horror story she'd ever heard screamed for her to resist. But the desperate urgency clawing at her made her hesitate. With a deep breath, she reached for the latch. Then silence again. The woods held their breath. A chill crept through the window like a warning breeze. Suddenly, a crash shattered the quiet. A violent rattle erupted on the roof above them. Emily shot her gaze upwards, terror coursing through her veins. It was followed by manic rustling, a presence, alive and wild, disturbed and dangerous. What had come for them? The children screamed, and at that moment, a scream of her own rose up, ready to escape, but she stilled it, her voice turning into a low, desperate whisper. "We need to get out of here, now." As Emily grabbed her kids, she knew deep down they weren't alone anymore. The camp had awakened to an ancient evil. With her moments dwindling, she turned toward the door, ready to face whatever lay beyond, only to see shadowy forms pooling against the windows. And in the distance, another howl echoed through the night, beckoning the darkness closer and closer. What waited for them in the woods? Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she broke the silence that had enveloped the cabin, the weight of impending doom pressing against her. With trembling hands, she tightened her grip on Jake and Lily as they huddled close. "We're going out the back," she whispered, voice barely above a breath. They could feel the vibration of the world outside slithering against the door. The kids nodded, fear etched into their small faces. As she led the way, the air hung stale, the room heavy like a coiled spring ready to snap. One last glance at the door, and then they were moving, instinct guiding their trembling legs. Creeping toward the back exit, Emily's mind screamed for her to hurry. The constant thrumming of something alive above them clawed at her sanity. Each knock resonated like a drumbeat of terror. She pushed open the door slowly, every creak a cry of warning. The chilling night air rushed in, biting through the warmth clinging to their skin. "Mom, it's dark." Jake's voice wavered, echoing in the silence like a fragile bird caught in a storm. "Stay close," she urged, stepping into the inky blackness, the backyard swallowed whole by shadows. The trees loomed like sentinels, branches weaving together to block out any light, their twisted forms resembling claws ready to snatch them back if they ventured too far. Suddenly, a flurry of motion skated across the leaves nearby, a whisper lost in the wind. Emily stilled, heart racing. "What was that?" she whispered, every instinct on high alert. They stood frozen as breath caught in her throat, straining against the tension. A figure materialized just beyond the tree's lanky, hunched, glistening in the dim moonlight. Something was wrong with its shape. It moved against nature, blending and breaking in ways that made her feel sick. "Mom!" Lily cried, squeezing Jake's hand tighter, her voice a terrified whisper. "Run!" Emily yelled, her heart surging with dread. They dashed forward, the cabin forgotten behind them, the dark wood and metal collapsing in the rear view of their panic. Emily's foot snagged on roots and low branches. Every rustle behind them felt like an accusation, a reminder of the fate they were escaping. Branches scratched at her exposed skin as she navigated through the dense underbrush. The children stumbled, struggling to keep pace. Emily glanced back for a heartbeat and saw it eyes glimmering, unsettling and predatory, boring into her soul. Fear enveloped her like icy fingers wrapping around her throat. She pushed the thought of Mark from her mind, but the worry clawed back. Had the darkness claimed him too? Could they endure without him? "Where are we going, Mom?" Jake whimpered, his voice cracking with panic. "Anywhere but here." Emily shot back, urgency interlaced with despair. But she wasn't sure of where the anywhere lay. With every step, they veered deeper into the forest, shadows twisting and shifting like creatures of their own. Every whisper of the wind sent chills through her. The howl from earlier echoed again, longer, more feral, almost taunting her. It was close. Suddenly, the ground dropped away beneath them. They tumbled down what felt like an endless slope, thorns snagging at clothes, biting through skin. Emily's world spun as they landed in a heap amongst the roots and dirt. Dazed and disoriented, Emily raised her head, instincts screaming for her to look back. Through the trees, she caught sight of it, the shadow a swirling mass, alive, breathing. It lingered where they had fallen, the air thickening with dread. "Mom! Help!" Jake cried, his tiny voice a whimper. Instead of comfort, all she could feel was a creeping anxiety as the reality of their isolation sunk in. "Shoo! Just stay quiet," she urged, pressing her finger to her lips. They pressed against each other, the warmth of their bodies a fleeting comfort against the encroaching cold. Emily's heart drummed in her ears, a crescendo of panic that echoed through the silence. What sought them in this unforgiving darkness? And from above, those eyes, did they watch, waiting for the moment to seize them? The night had just begun. The woods around them breathed with an unsettling life, twisting and turning, as if the very earth aimed to ensnare them further. Emily felt the chill of night seep deeper into her bones, her grip tightening around Jake and Lily. They couldn't panic, she wouldn't let that happen. But the weight of the unseen presence loomed heavier over them, turning every rustle into a sinister whisper. "Mom, what is that noise?" Lily's voice clung to her like a vine, urging her to pay attention to the world beyond their little cluster. Emily strained to listen. The air felt soupy, thick with a sensation both foreign and familiar. A warbling sound crept over the leaves, an uncanny echo of their own muffled breaths. It felt like something or someone was mimicking them, matching their rhythm, the way shadows stretch and multiply in the fading light. Just wind," Emily stammered, but doubt crept into her own heart. She forced her eyes to scan the tree line, searching for any sign of that lurking form, that thing with the glimmering eyes that had sparked such visceral fear. But now it was lost in darkness, playing tricks on her mind. The kids huddled closer, and she could feel their small hearts racing in unison, a frantic percussion that matched her own. She made a decision. "Simon, we need to find the path back to the cabin." As they stumbled through the low brush, twigs snapped under their feet, sharp and loud, a betrayal against the heavy silence. The breath of the earth seemed tainted, a foul reminder that it was not an indifferent place. Each step echoed with a sense of urgency. Her instinct screamed at her to move faster. Suddenly, a crack split the night, sharp and dissonant. The kids froze. Emily's heart stopped, a jolt of electricity firing through her veins. "What was that?" Jake hissed, eyes wide with fear. "It's nothing," she urged, but her voice trembled. They were far from nothing. The shadow was out there, and it seemed to be getting closer, merging with the trees like a premonition of doom. "Look," Lily's finger pointed, trembling as it reached toward a figure distorted by the shadows. With a sharp intake of breath, Emily glanced over, immediately regretting it. Among the trees, there was movement, a tall shape that leaned forward, its back slouched and shrouded in darkness. Emily's stomach dropped. "Run!" she shouted, pulling the kids away with her, their feet flying over the forest floor as they raced toward an uncertain escape. But the laughter, they could hear it now, high-pitched and mocking, spiraling through the air, echoing off the trees, a sound that dripped with malice. Time blurred as they dodged branches, the forest feeling alive around them, scratching at their skin, reaches grasping like desperate hands. Instincts told her to keep going, to push through, but fear sapped her strength, each step made heavier by the weight of the darkness closing in. This way, Emily spotted a flicker of moonlight breaking through a tangle of branches. It had to lead to something, a clearing, perhaps. They needed light. They needed a sign that they weren't alone. They broke through the brush into a small open space, breathless and panting. As they paused, Emily's eyes darted around, searching for any signs of danger. The laughter faded behind them, but there remained a chilling echo, like a haunting reminder of their pursuer. "Mom, I'm scared," Jake murmured, his small voice breaking her heart. "Just hold on a little longer. We'll be safe soon." But deep down she felt the fear curdling with doubt. They were not safe. She could feel it festering in the air, persistent and cruel. The trees whispered secrets, and the night pressed in, watching, waiting. Then, as if to signal their grim fate, the ground shifted beneath them, once more a tremor underfoot that sent them scrambling for balance. "What's happening?" Lily cried, eyes wide and terrified. "There's something here," Emily said, panic twisting tighter in her chest. She knew this wasn't over. The darkness wouldn't let them go easily. There was a low rumble just out of sight, the trees bending, moaning. It sounded almost human, like a warning, a threat. As they turned, the shape re-emerged from the shadows, closer now, emanating a sense of dread that hung between them like heavy fog. "What do you want?" she cried out, and the forest held its breath, silencing their fear for just a moment. But in that moment, an unearthly laughter erupted, chilling them to the bone as it echoed around them. What other horrors lay hidden in the shadows? Would they ever escape the unseen hand that gripped their fate? Emily's throat was dry as she choked on the suffocating air, her heart hammering like a trapped bird. The echo of that dreadful laughter twisted and curled around them, an unseen predator savoring its prey. She glanced back at Jake and Lily, their faces pale and wide-eyed mirrors of her own fear. "Stay close," she commanded, but her voice felt weak, fragile against the thrumming dread that vibrated through the forest. The shape loomed, just shadows and whispers at the edge of her vision. She could feel its gaze, piercing through the darkness, as if tasting their fear, waiting, biding its time. Emily turned and pulled the kids deeper into the moonlight that flickered through the tree branches. They needed to move. They had to find some kind of refuge. "Look, there," Jake pointed, and for a brief second hope flickered. A small cabin sat just up ahead, half hidden beneath a canopy of gnarled branches. It was old, but standing a potential sanctuary in this waking nightmare. "Come on." Emily rushed forward, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The shadows felt like they were reaching for them, hot breaths of terror brushing against her skin. As they neared the cabin, she noticed that its windows were dark, each one a hollow eye staring into oblivion. The door hung ajar, creaking on its hinges. Her instincts screamed to turn back, to run into the night. But what choice did they have? Inside, the air was thick, stale, a graveyard of memories trapped in the wood. The floor creaked ominously as they stepped in, and the dim light revealed dust-coated furniture and peeling wallpaper. "Mom, what's that?" Lily craned her neck to look up, pointing at the far corner. A shape loomed there, indistinct but heavy with presence. Emily squinted, her stomach flipping. The air grew even colder, the shadows creeping in closer. Just some old stuff," she murmured, though the quiver in her voice gave her away. She forced herself to step further inside, hoping to chase the thickening dread away. The laughter echoed again, weaker now but still somehow escalating, like a taunting chant weaving through the night. The tremors beneath their feet returned, rippling through the cabin, sending tremors of fear straight into their bones. "Mom! It's coming!" Jake shouted, his face a mask of terror. Emily spun around. Outside, shadows whipped along the edges of the trees. She could almost make out the outline of that dreadful figure, its movements jerky and unnatural, a marionette pulled by invisible strings. "Lock the door. Quick!" She hurried the kids toward it, fiercely grabbing the knob, but her fingers slipped. The wood felt alive, pulsing as she wrestled with it. The sound of splintering would ringing in her ears. As the door pulled violently inward, a chill rushed past her. She staggered back, heart racing. As the shadow filled the doorway, dark and unfurling like a bad dream spilling into reality. "What do you want?" she yelled again, desperation creeping into every syllable. There was no reply, just that eerie laughter, now a low rumble that vibrated through the very foundation of the cabin. Anxiety clawed at her throat, and every instinct told her to run, but there was nowhere to escape. Emily caught a glimpse of its face. The twisted, contorted features seemed to melt and reform, a cruel mockery of human expression. With a sudden jolt, the lights flickered, plunging them into near darkness. They could barely see, just silhouettes of despair dancing in the shadows. "Mom!" Lily screamed, and the sound pierced through Emily's fog of terror. Then came another voice, soft and low, weaving through the darkness. "Now you belong to us." The weight of the words slammed into her like a physical force, and everything went still. She felt it, the monstrous intention wrapping around them. Emily's breath came in panicky bursts. She needed to think. She needed to act. But before she could decide, the door burst open completely, and the darkness flooded in like water filling a sinking ship. What would they face next? Would they become another story, lost among the haunted whispers of the woods? Emily stumbled backward as the cold darkness surged into the cabin. The shadow moved with purpose, swirling like smoke, encasing her and the children in a suffocating grip. She could barely breathe, the air thickening around them as shadows coalesced into a form, twisting and contorting until it stood before them, an abomination not meant for the light. "Run!" she screamed, but her voice was a pebble dropped into a bottomless well, swallowed by the night. The children were frozen, minds scrambling in confusion as the figure towered over them. In that moment of dread, she felt the pull of the darkness trying to draw her in, its whispers crawling inside her head, filling her thoughts with despair. Emily had to break free. "Jake! Lily! Move!" She lunged for the children's arms, heart racing, and jerked them towards the back of the cabin. But the shadow was relentless. A tendril whipped out like lightning, brushing against her arm, sending a jolt of icy panic through her. She screamed as the pain shot through her, but she kept pushing the kids forward. "Out through the window!" Emily shouted, desperately glancing around the room. The window at the far side was covered in grime. The glass cracked, yet it beckoned as their exit. They raced toward it, feet pounding on the creaking floor, the laughter behind them roaring to life, a cacophony that drowned out her thoughts. Jake reached the window first and began to scramble through, but Emily heard a sound that froze her in place, a raspy breath, hot, right against the back of her neck. "Emily," the darkness whispered, a voice deep and distorted. It was hungry. "No, not now." She twisted around, flinging herself forward as she felt the presence closing in. She could hear the children's frantic whispers mingling with the sinister voice, but then nothing. There was a sudden silence that drowned out even the laughter. "Mom!" It was Lily's voice tearing through the quiet like a siren for rescue. Emily glanced back to find Jake and Lily clambering out of the window into the night. The moment her eyes met theirs, that ghastly figure seized her arm with a grip like iron. Paralyzed, she felt the cold seep into her bones, the air thick with impending doom. In that split second, images flashed through her mind: her family, their laughter during summer picnics, sleepy evenings spent on the porch, and stark terror washed over her. She needed to break this connection, this hold over her. She twisted and kicked, finally free of its grasp as she hurled herself toward the window. "Go! I'll follow!" she cried, her heart pounding so loud in her ears she could barely hear anything else. With a single effort, she lunged through the frame, vines snagging her clothes as she landed hard on the ground outside. The air felt electric, alive with fear. But the madness wasn't done yet. Up ahead, the forest loomed, dark and waiting, and she could hear the persistence of the laughter rising, echoing through the trees. "Emily!" Jake shouted, glancing back, eyes wide with panic. She pulled Lily close, scanning their escape route as the cabin behind them filled with shadows, overflowing as if to swallow the world whole. "We have to run. Now!" With a pulse of adrenaline, they plunged into the thicket, branch after branch scraping against them, the haunting laughter trailing behind like a haunting memory they couldn't escape. But as they ran deeper into the woods, the darkness didn't just follow, they could feel it shifting and moving, a living thing surrounding them. Every rustle seemed deliberate, as if the forest itself were alive and conspiring against them. Suddenly, something caught Emily's eye, a flicker up ahead. Another cabin? No, it looked different. Larger, more dilapidated. Its windows glimmered faintly, but not with warmth. They couldn't afford to hope, but instinct drew them closer. "What's that?" Jake whispered. Emily's skin prickled. In a voice thicker than dread, she murmured, "I don't know, but we might not be safe anywhere." The shape seemed to pulse, like a heartbeat in the dense darkness. With every step, the air grew, electric with anticipation, and Emily could feel the weight of eyes upon them, waiting, watching. What secrets lay hidden within that old structure? What awaited them inside the depths of another shadowy sanctuary? Every instinct told Emily to turn back, to run as far as possible from this cabin. But the laughter from the darkened woods was now a melodic echo, coaxing them forward, wrapping around their minds like a vice. The entrance gaped like a mouth waiting to swallow them whole. Yet in a moment of desperate resolve, she stepped toward it, dragging Jake and Lily along. "Stay close," she whispered, her voice trembling. The door hung half open, creaking, revealing a dark interior that felt as though it was breathing a heavy, musty sigh that beckoned them deeper. Inside, shadows danced wildly against the peeling walls. The floorboards groaned underfoot, a warning that echoed their own hearts. A chill swept through, colder than anything Emily had ever felt, and she shivered despite the summer heat. But there was no turning back now. Across the room, a set of stairs spiraled upward into complete darkness. A flickering lantern hung from the ceiling, casting an eerie glow that barely pierced the depths above. The moment she stepped inside, a wave of dread crashed over her. Something was wrong. This was no ordinary cabin. Jake's voice quivered, barely above a whisper. "What if it's worse in here?" She squeezed his hand but couldn't answer. Was there really any choice? The laughter outside grew louder, the shadows in their minds more enticing a siren song, inviting them to surrender to the darkness. They need to explore, but every step felt like breaking an unspoken rule, like approaching the edge of a precipice. Glancing around, Emily noticed remnants of a life once lived. An old rocking chair that swayed slightly, as if someone had just left it. A worn-out diary lying open on the dusty table. She hesitated before stepping closer, her gut twisting with apprehension. "What's in the diary?" Lily asked, peeking from behind Emily's side, her innocent eyes wide with curiosity. "I don't know." Emily took a deep breath, steeling herself against the creeping dread. She reached for the diary, the leather cover cracked and cold to the touch. Flipping through the pages, she felt drawn into the ink, scrawled words spilling secrets long buried. There was something here, something they were hiding, she murmured, reading of strange occurrences, of people who had vanished into the forest, their laughter echoing in a sinister way much like the sounds they had heard. Suddenly, a thud came from overhead, shaking the cabin. Emily felt her heart leap into her throat. "We're not alone," she said, panic rising like bile. The laughter outside stopped, replaced by the sound of footsteps, slow, deliberate. The darkness shifted, pressing against them, as though it were hungry for their fear. "Quick! Up the stairs!" Emily shouted, urgency surging through her. They dashed toward the staircase, Lily pulling at Emily's sleeve, fear etched on her small face. As they climbed, her mind raced. No one would hear them scream, not with the forest alive with whispers. The sound of footsteps grew louder, echoing through the walls around them. Was it coming from above or behind? Reaching the top, Emily was met with a long hallway, shadows stretching and reaching from door to door. Every instinct screamed to move, but curiosity tugged at her to explore. A door to the right stood ajar, faint light spilling through. A sharp gasp escaped her at the sight. Inside, a figure sat rocking in that old chair, its head cradled in its hands, back to them. Emily's blood ran cold. She stepped back, glancing at Jake and Lily to see if they'd noticed. But they were both entranced, staring at the figure as if it were calling to them. Jake's eyes were wide with fear. What if it sees us? A chill wind whipped through the hallway, carrying a whispering voice that seemed to wind around those words. A heavy breath against her ear. "Stay with me." Emily's pulse raced. They were running out of time. What if they crossed that threshold? She had to make a choice: stay, risking everything to find out what lurked in the shadows, or run, away from the terrible unknown. As she took a step back, the figure turned. Slowly, a twisted smile dawning on its pale face. Emily's breath hitched. It was time to decide what would happen if they stepped into the room, what waited for them in the darkness, and could they ever truly escape? The figure's smile widened, revealing teeth that were oddly pointed, almost like animal fangs. One hand dropped away from its face, revealing a pallid wrist, thin and barely moving. Emily felt a wave of nausea rise as dread gnawed at her insides. Her heart pounded violently against her ribs, and she instinctively took another step back, pulling Jake and Lily with her. We need to go," she hissed, her voice a strangled whisper. But as she turned to retreat, the door slammed shut behind them, a thunderous clap that resonated through the wooden frame. Lily let out a small yelp, and Jake stumbled back into Emily, nearly knocking her over. Panic clawed at Emily's throat. The laughter was back, echoing around them, an inescapable force that turned their terror into despair. "Open the door," Jake shouted, his voice cracking with fear. He pounded on the thick wood, desperation seeping into his tone. "Let us out." The figure in the chair remained turned in their direction, but it hadn't moved, its presence heavy and suffocating. Emily felt as if the very air around them had thickened, wrapping around her like a vice. "Emily?" Lily's small voice broke through the chaos. "What's happening?" In that moment, a thought struck Emily. Could it be a trap designed to lure them in? They were never meant to escape. The thought chilled her more than the frigid air swirling around them. She had to act, had to protect them no matter the cost. "Follow me," Emily cried, not waiting for a response. She dashed down the hallway, gripping Lily's hand tightly. They bolted past doors, some slightly ajar, others tightly closed, but all holding an ominous promise of what lay within. The flickering lantern cast jagged shadows that mocked their terrified flight. They turned a sharp corner and came upon a larger room, the walls lined with fading portraits that seemed to watch them with hungry eyes. The floor here was covered in dust, the air stagnant. Emily hesitated, unsure if they should slip inside or keep racing away. Jake panted, looking from her to the shadowy doorway behind, where that horrifying figure remained. "What if it follows us?" "It can't," she shot back, but doubt crept in. What if they were trapped in a nightmarish game? What if it was waiting for them to make a mistake? A sudden, bone-chilling cold swept through the room. It was as if winter had seeped in, a gust that stung their skin. They could hear a whisper, a low chant that wrapped around their senses, pulling them deeper. Emily clutched Lily's hand tighter, feeling her small fingers tremble. "What's that?" Lily whispered, her innocent eyes wide with horror. "I don't know," Emily replied, her own fear overwhelming her. "But we're not staying to find out." In the back of her mind, a primal instinct was fighting against her curiosity. She was torn between the terror of the lurking figure and the voice that beckoned them further into the shadows. With a deep breath, she turned toward a door that appeared to lead outside, praying it wouldn't be locked. But before she could reach for the handle, the walls began to pulse as if alive, each beat resonating with the whispers in the air. The portraits twisted, their expressions contorting into grotesque masks of torment and impossibility. Emily's breath caught. One of the portraits, a girl with pallid skin and hollow eyes, grinned, and then her lips curled back, revealing jagged teeth that mirrored the figure in the chair. "What if it is waiting for us?" Jake's voice trembled beside her. Before Emily could respond, the room shook violently, debris raining down from above as if the cabin itself was reacting. The whispers erupted into a cacophony, growing louder and more frantic. They had to get out. Fumbling, Emily rushed for the door that seemed to beckon with light. But as she reached for the handle, the whispers exploded into laughter again, cold and mocking. "Help!" Lily screamed as a shadow lunged at them from the darkness, its form shifting and contorting, chaos erupting around them. In the freezing moment before impact, Emily stood frozen, the weight of the unknown suffocating. What had they awakened? With a final roar of laughter, shadows engulfed them, swirling into a darkness that promised an eternity of terror. What would they find if they escaped? And would they still be themselves? The world around them dissolved into a mass of chaos. Emily felt the laughter wrap around her, a grotesque cloak that smothered her senses. The shadows shifted, swirling like a storm around her and her friends, pushing them deeper into despair. "Don't fight it," a voice hissed in her ear, sending icy fingers of fear down her spine. "Join us." Emily squeezed her eyes shut, desperate to block out the horrific vision. The shadows closed in, writhing and twisting, hungry for warmth. She could feel the cold seep into her bones, making her limbs heavy with dread. "Emily!" Jake shouted, his voice now barely cutting through the overwhelming darkness. She could not let fear consume them. They had to move. "Keep your eyes on me," she cried, forcing her feet to move. She stumbled forward, her heart pounding like a drum in her ears. She could feel Jake and Lilia's presence behind her, their breaths hitching in terror. The hallway stretched longer than before, an infinite void of suffocating darkness. As Emily pressed on, a screech broke through the laughter, piercing the air like a rusty knife. It was a sound that made her skin crawl, pulling at memories buried deep in her psyche. "Where are we?" Lily whimpered. "I don't know," Emily gasped, glancing back at Lily, her face pale and terrified, her wide eyes reflecting the chaos around them. They turned another corner, and suddenly, the floor beneath them cracked like ice and dropped into a dark pit. Emily barely managed to catch the edge, her fingers scraping against rough wooden beams. "Jake!" she screamed. With a grunt, he reached down, his hand clasping onto hers, pulling her back from the edge. The darkness pulsed, howling around them like a hungry beast. Just as quick as it came, the world settled into an eerie silence, leaving Emily breathless. They were alive, but the shadows had not disappeared. Lurking in the corners, draped over the walls, they still watched with hungry patience. "Keep moving," Emily urged, tearing her gaze away from the abyss. They pressed on, navigating through the labyrinth of fear that seemed to have no end. Then, a sudden flicker of light caught her attention. Flickers turned into a glowing hue illuminating a nearby room. It promised clarity, solace amidst their haunting escape. "Over here," she called, racing toward it with renewed hope. But as she pushed through the doorway, the warmth enveloped her. The room was bright, with walls lined with mirrors that warped her reflection. Confusion washed over her. She saw her own terrified face staring back at her from every angle. "Emily, wait," Jake warned, but she was already stepping deeper into the room. The moment she crossed the threshold, the laughter from earlier returned, mocking and cruel. "What is happening?" Lily's voice cried out in desperate panic. The reflections shifted, revealing twisted versions of her friends' faces melting with dread, eyes wild with terror. Emily gasped, stumbling back. This was no sanctuary but another trap. "Get out," Jake yelled as he pulled Lily out of the doorway just in time to avoid being consumed by the mirrors. In that moment, Emily realized these reflections were not just visions. They were echoes of what they feared most. Shadows pulled from their minds, threatening to become reality. "There has to be another way out," Emily shouted. The walls were beginning to tremble, the mirrors pulsating as if alive. The laughter grew louder, an unbearable symphony of madness. Then, a new figure emerged from the darkness in the reflection. A grotesque shadow, eerily familiar, much like the one in the chair. Emily's heart raced as panic surged. "Whatever you do, don't look back," Jake cried, pushing Emily into the darkness behind him. The shadows and laughter closed in, a maelstrom that threatened to consume them whole. What else lay hidden in the shadows? Would they find escape? Or was this merely a deeper descent into the nightmare? Emily's pulse raced as she plunged deeper into the swirling abyss of darkness. The oppressive laughter reverberated off the walls, echoing her fears back at her. Instinct kicked in. She pushed forward, dragging Jake and Lily along, each of them stumbling in a mad dash for survival. The corridor twisted, and the air thickened, every breath feeling like a weight to bear. Just ahead, a doorway glimmered faint, but it beckoned with a whisper of hope. "This way," she yelled, her voice piercing the din like a beacon of urgency. As they barreled through the door, the laughter faded into a haunting silence. The room beyond was bathed in a serene bluish light, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. Emily felt her heart attempt to settle, the quiet suffused with an illusion of safety. "Mom, where are we?" Jake breathed, his wide eyes scanning the space. "It's okay, we're okay for now." Emily's own voice trembled. She stepped into the room, her instincts still firing. It felt too calm, too perfect. The walls were adorned with rich tapestries depicting forests bathed in sunlight, children frolicking in the fields, and families united in joy. But instead of comfort, unease settled in her stomach. "Is this a trick?" Lily's small, innocent voice shattered the fragile quiet. Emily shook her head. "I don't know, baby." Dread clawed at the back of her mind, reminding her that nothing was as it seemed. A sudden noise, light footsteps broke the stillness. An elderly woman appeared from a hidden doorway, her face a mask of kindness. Yet her eyes were too bright, too knowing. "Welcome, dears," she said, her voice smooth as silk. "You're safe here, away from the darkness." But something in that tone sent shivers racing down Emily's spine. "Who are you?" she demanded, instinctively positioning herself between the children and the stranger despite the warmth of the room. "Just someone who knows how to escape," the woman said, tilting her head with a smile that seemed to deepen the lines of her face. "The darkness you flee thrives on fear, child. You must let it go, or you will never be free." "I can't just let go," Emily cried, desperation edging her voice. "I have to protect my kids." The woman nodded slowly, her eyes glimmering. "You must confront it, then. The truth lies deep within." Before Emily could respond, the walls began to tremble. The serene warmth turned icy, shadows creeping back, tendrils wrapping around the edges of the room. "No, they had to stay here. Run," she shouted, the command bursting from her lips as a dark whirlwind tore through the mere facade of safety. The children instinctively tightened their grips around her. As they sprinted back through the door, they entered a storm of shadows that whipped around them like sharpened claws. "Where do we go?" Jake yelled, panic rising in his voice. "Find light," Emily shouted, pressing onward through the onslaught of darkness. She couldn't allow them to be lost. Not now, not ever. Then she spotted it, a faint glow piercing through the dense shadows a little further ahead. She drew them toward it, a magnet of hope amidst despair. "There," she urged, heart racing. But as they rushed closer, the laughter swooped in once again, spinning around them like turns of a terrifying carousel. The trees dimmed, sinking into dark shapes that pressed closer, murmuring maliciously. "Keep running. Keep moving," Emily yelled, pushing herself to keep her rhythm, her heart echoing the urgency. They reached the edge of a clearing, where the light pulsed warmly. It hung in the air like a lighthouse in a storm, illuminating the darkness that dared to close in behind them. "Mom, I'm so scared," Lily whimpered, her small body trembling against Emily's. "It's going to be okay. We're almost free. Look." Emily pointed to the light, the air around it humming with life, resonating warmth. The shadows hesitated. In that moment, everything clicked. The darkness couldn't withstand the light. "This way," she shouted, leading the charge, instinct guiding them forward into the embrace of that hopelessly bright sanctuary. As they crossed the threshold, the shadows screeched, retreating as the light consumed their darkness. The laughter erupted into furious wails, echoing in protest. Emily felt it, a release, a weight lifted off her chest as writhing shapes began to disintegrate, turning into vapor against the radiance. Jake and Lily looked up, fear finally slipping from their tight features. The warmth wrapped around them, erasing the memories of fear, drowning out the echoes of laughter entrenched in their minds. "You will not escape," thundered a voice from the remnants of darkness, a final cry saturated in rage. But it was futile. Emily held her children tighter as light surged around them, the cacophony of their nightmares fading into whispers of nothingness. The three of them stood together, hearts drumming in unison as the glow intensified, then exploded with brilliance, engulfing the dreadful remnants. The shadows howled but receded, battle lost against the brilliant dawn of hope and light, a light that promised safety and refuge. When the brightness began to fade, they found themselves back in the safety of the normal world. Camp Pinewood sprawling before them, life exploding around them, the sound of laughter ringing clear. Emily gasped, a heavy sense of relief washing over her. "We made it," she gasped, joy mingling with disbelief as the weight of what they had survived cascaded over her. "Mom, are we safe?" Jake's voice was small, filled with the innocent wonder of children emerging from darkness. "Yes, sweetheart, we're safe." Her heart swelled. They were whole. Together, they had fought off the shadows, and with the dawn breaking brightly across the sky, it seemed like the dark stories would remain just that, stories whispered around campfires rather than their reality. As they turned back to face the camp, she whispered a promise to herself, to her children, and to any lurking shadows. They would not be taken so easily again. And as they walked hand in hand into the glow of the summer morning, Emily felt a new strength forged in that battle, the understanding that darkness thrived on fear, that shadows could loom large, but with love and courage, they could always find the light. So, every story has a lesson. Some truths we carry in our hearts, unshakable and bright like the sunshine breaking through days of despair. As they stepped into Camp Pinewood, laughter erupting once more among the campers, Emily took a deep breath of relief, letting go of the darkness within. They were free. But remember, stories like this can happen anywhere, so don't you dare let the shadows linger. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now to join our growing community. This is the moment to show your support for the fearless narrations you crave. Don't wait even one more second to share the thrill with others who need to feel that pulse of excitement.